Good morning, dear children. Welcome back. So, we already finished the fourth chapter, history, that was the Harappan civilization. Now, today we will start the fifth chapter, that is different ways of living, what books and burial tell us, the Vedic period, and the Chalcolithic settlements. Okay, so let's start. In a vast country like India, with varied topography and different climate conditions, it is very difficult to look for a uniform pattern of culture in all parts of the country and in any period of her long journey through the ages. We shall first deal with the main features of the Vedic culture, okay, and then we shall take up the story of Chalcolithic settlement. So, first is the Vedic literature. Much of the knowledge about the Aryans is derived from the Vedic literature comprising mainly the Vedas and the two great epics, that is the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. Next is the Vedas. The term Vedas comes from the root Vid, which means wisdom or knowledge. Okay, the knowledge of the Aryans is contained in the four Vedas, that is the Brahmanas, the Aranyakas, and the Upanishads, etc. This secret literature of the Aryans is known as the Vedic literature. So the importance of the Vedas is the Vedas are very important as they provide the cheap information about the Aryans as well as the Vedic period. Information about the arrival of the Aryans, the settlements, culture and civilization, religious, economic and political life of the Aryans, etc. is also available in the Vedas. So the Vedas are four in number. That is, the first one is Rig Veda, the Sama Veda, the Yajur Veda, and Atharva Veda. They are the oldest and the most secret books of the Aryans. Okay, it is believed that they were revealed by God to the rishis. The Rig Veda is the oldest of the Vedas and contains 1028 hymns in praise of gods and goddesses. The Sama Veda contains hymns to be sung by a special class of priests in Soma sacrifice. The Yajurveda contains hymns that are to be followed in an ordinary sacrifice, all right? And the Atharva Veda is a collection of songs, spells, magical charms for the evil spirits, etc. These Vedas form the these Vedas form the most important sources of information about the political, social, economic, and religious life of the Aryans. Besides the Vedas, the Brahmanas and the Aranyakas and the Upanishad also form a part of the early Vedic literature. The Brahmanas are commentaries on the Vedic hymns in simple prose. The Aryankas were meant for the hermits who lived in forest. The Upanishad deal with the Indian philosophy and involve theories of karma, maya, and the mukti. Now let's proceed to the next, that is the two great epics, the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. There is no denying the fact that a great variety of literature comprising the sutras and the Venangas and the Upanishad, etc., throw a good deal of light of the later Vedic period, but there is none that can be compared with two great epics, the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. So, in this respect, it is general belief that the Ramayana was originally composed by Rishi Valmiki in Sanskrit. Here is the picture. But the one composed by Goswami Tulsidas in Hindi is the most popular. It is known as the Ramacharita Manas and the Ramayana. In its present form, contains about 24,000 verses in Hindi slokas and has 7 cantons, and the Mahabharata at present contains about 1 lakh slokas of verses, and is divided into 18 books with the Harivamsa attached to it at the end as supplement. There is a general belief that this great work was compiled by Rishi Vyasa. All right. So the next we have how the historians study the Rig Veda. The archaeologists and historians study the past history by using the material remains and the written sources. They make use of both the sources to explain the lives of the people who lived ages long ago. Among the written sources, the Rig Veda occupies an important place. It contains 1028 hymns, all sung in prayer of gods and goddesses or different objects of nature. Some of the hymns of the Rig Vedas are in the form of dialogues. In one such hymns, there is a dialogue between Bhishmamitra, a renowned sage, and two rivers, Bees and Sutles, that were worshipped as goddesses. This hymns translated in English goes like this, as you can see. Here, Bhishmamitra says, "O rivers, come down from the mountains like two swift horses, like two shining cows that lick their calves. You move like chariots to the sea. Through the power of Indra, you are full of water and wish to unite with one another." And the river says, "We who are full of water move along the path the gods have made for us. Once we start flowing, we cannot be stopped. Why do you pray to us, O sage?" Bhishmamitra, "O sisters, please listen to me. The singer who has come from a distance with his chariots and carts lets your waters not rise above our axe so that we can cross safely." The river says, "We will listen to your prayers so that you can cross safely." So the historians point out that this hymns was composed in the area where these rivers flow. They also suggest that the sage lived in a society where horses and cows were valued animals. That is why the rivers are compared to horses and cows. Remember, there are a number of other rivers as well in the Rig Veda, like those of the Indus and its tributaries and the Saraswati, but strangely enough, the Ganga and the Yamuna are mentioned only once, which indicates that the Aryans in the Rig Vedic time has not yet advanced in the Gangetic Valley. Alright? Let's proceed to the next, that is, what do the Vedas tell us? As mentioned above, the Vedas tell us a lot about the Vedic civilization. The arrival of the Aryans in India, their early settlements, their social, religious, economic, and political life. One of the most important Iron Age civilization was the Aryan Civilization, which flourished in India. Now, the Aryan and their arrival in India. Alright, it is said that the Aryans were one of the civilized and cultured races of the world. They were tall and fair complexioned, people with sharp features. They had a strong physique. Most of the Indians, Persians, and even the English and the Germans, the Spanish and the French pride themselves as the true descendants of the Aryans. That is why they considered themselves superior to any other race. The occupation of India is regarded as one of the most momentous events in the history of India. They came to India during the second millennium BC. This age is called the Vedic age because much of the knowledge about this period is derived from the Vedic texts, especially the Vedas. Historians and scholars have put forward different views regarding the original home of the Aryans. While some of them think that they were the original inhabitants of India, others regard them as invaders who destroyed the superior civilization of the original inhabitants from their drop beyond the Vidyas. But now most of the historians agree that the original homes of Aryan was in Central Asia and the regions around the Caspian Sea. It was from this reason that groups of these illustrious people migrate to various countries to Europe and Asia. They were probably forced by the shortage of food and fodder to leave their home and seek settlement in other lands. I repeat, they were probably forced by the shortage of food and fodder to leave their home and seek settlement in other lands. Those groups of Aryans who came to India are called the Indo-Aryans. All right. The main features of the settlements: the Aryans first crossed the northwest passes and then settled in the area of modern Punjab, Sindh, and northwest frontier province. But this was not an easy task because they had to face the Dravidians. These people fought against the Aryan at every step and thus checked their advance for a long time. At this time, the Aryans were still living in the area which came to known as Sapta Sindhu. This age is known as the early Vedic age in the history of India. Later on, the Aryan moved east and north and occupied the area now represented by UP, Bihar, Odisha, Bengal, and other parts of the northern India. They gave the name Aryavarta, okay, to this region which they conquered after a struggle of thousands of years, that is to 2500 BC to 700 BC. This period when the Aryans settled in Gangetic Valley is known as the latter Vedic period. This was during this period that the Aryan had to fight another battle of the Mahabharata, but now the Aryan had no fear of the resistance of the native tribes whom they call Dasyus. So the next here, as you can see in figure 5.1, extent of Aryan civilization, how it extend in the India. Vedic culture references is given here about 1500 to 1000 BC, region inhabitants by early Vedic peoples, that is Sapta Sindhu, and 1000 to 600 BC region inhabited by later Vedic people. Direction of movement from that is, as you can see, the purple in color arrow mark, that is Sapta Sindhu to Ganga plains, and the major cities is given, that is the present international boundary. As you can see that Shrabhavasti, Kosala, Indrapsta, Harappa, Mohenjo-daro, Indus, Jilium, Chenab, Ravi, V, Sutlej, Peshawar, Takshashila, Indus. These are the extents of the Aryan civilizations. Now moving on next, that is the Vedic culture and the civilization. From the Vedic literature, we can form an idea of the Vedic culture and civilization and the development of society or social life of the Aryans. The Aryan led a very simple life. They lived in village which were composed of many families. The head of the family was called a Grihapati. Their families were partial, or we can say that the eldest male member used to be the head of the family. He exercised full authority over all the members of the family. Even after marriage, the sons and the grandsons used to live in the same family. It means there was a joint family system. The Aryan lived in the tribe and spoke Sanskrit, okay, which is still extant in India. In the Vedic period, women enjoyed a respectable position in society. In a society, they used to get high education. There was no parda system, okay, parda system, and child marriage was unknown during that time. Widows were allowed to remarry, okay. No function was considered complete without women's participations. During the Vedic period, there were four classes of people, that is Varnas, the Brahmins, the Kshatriyas, and the Vaishyas, and the Sudras. The Brahmins were priests and teacher. Hi. The Brahmins were priests and the teacher, and the Kshatriyas were rulers and warriors. The Vaishyas were the farmers, traders, and the craftsmen, and the Sudras did menial job and were meant to serve the three higher, that is Varnas, Kshatriyas, Brahmanas, and the Vaishyas. Okay, the Aryan had introduced a strict code of discipline in their life, which they had divided into four well-defined parts. The whole span of life was supposed to be 100 years, of which the first 25 years were to be spent in Gurukul, where students were taught by learned Brahmins in various art of life and religion. This stage of life was called Brahmacharya. The next stage, called the Grihastha Asrama, started when a man got married and raised a family. During this stage, he was supposed to work hard and support not only his own family but also his parents and other dependents. Okay, and Vanaprastha, or the age of virtual retirement from worldly life, started at the age of 50, which was followed by the last stage of life called the sannyas of the stage of total reunification to lead a life service and preaching.